Hi, I'm Dan Cornell, CTO of Denim Group, and this is a demonstration of the technology preview release of Denim Group's Vulnerability Manager. Vulnerability Manager is an open source platform organizations can use to manage their application security programs. A critical part of any application security program is knowing what applications you have in your portfolio. Vulnerability Manager allows organizations to keep track of these applications as well as important data about the vulnerabilities they contain. Here we can see a portfolio of applications that have already been loaded into the system. Vulnerability Manager allows you to import data about application-level vulnerabilities. It supports a variety of both commercial and freely available scanning tools and services, and support for additional technology can be created by extending a simple plugin interface. For example, here is a vulnerability imported from White Hat Security's Sentinel scanning service. Vulnerability Manager will also merge the results from different tools. This happens automatically in some cases, and for less clear-cut situations, it provides a merge screen with suggestions for correlations. What we have here is a situation where there is one underlying vulnerability that has been identified by two different scanning technologies. This consolidation of results helps application security managers get a clearer picture of the true security state of their applications. Now, once we have all this vulnerability data centralized and in a structured format, we can start taking steps to address the vulnerabilities. The first thing we can do is generate rules for our IDS, IPS, or web application firewalls to help protect the applications where we know they are vulnerable. This is a practice called virtual patching. And here you can see a snort rule generated for this SQL injection vulnerability. As with the vulnerability imports, a variety of technologies are currently supported, and new technologies can be supported with plugins. Looking at the list of vulnerabilities for our sample application, we can see we are able to automatically generate rules or virtual patches for certain types of vulnerabilities, but not for others. Vulnerability Manager gives the security teams the ability to see not just where they are vulnerable, but also where they have been able to provide short-term mitigations. Also, we can update logs from the IDS, IPS, or web application firewalls where we put our virtual patches. And Vulnerability Manager correlates these security events back to the previously generated rules and then to the underlying vulnerabilities. This provides visibility into what attackers are actually trying to exploit. Based on that information, an organization might choose to reprioritize their remediation efforts. So, we can protect ourselves in the short term, but what we really need to do is communicate this information to software development teams so they can fix the underlying issues. The vulnerabilities security teams are concerned with need to become defects that software teams deal with. Specific vulnerabilities can be easy to fix individually, and they often occur in clusters. We need to be careful how we communicate these to developers. Creating a dedicated software defect for each security vulnerability is often not a great strategy due to the high number of defects in many applications and the comparatively short fix time for individual vulnerabilities. Instead, we want to bundle vulnerabilities together into sensible packages and send those over to defect tracking systems. This lets application security folks communicate with software developers via the tools that developers are already using. Developers can then address the vulnerabilities as they would any other software defect. After the developer closes out the defect, Vulnerability Manager notices the state change in the defect tracking system and updates the status of the vulnerability in Vulnerability Manager, so security teams know that a code fix has been applied. As with other integration points, support for new defect tracking and change management systems is handled through a plugin interface. Everything we have looked at so far has been centered around vulnerabilities, but it is also important for application security managers to monitor the security practices adopted by different development teams. A number of maturity models for evaluating security practices of development teams have been developed, and Vulnerability Manager allows you to evaluate teams against these standards. Here, we can see a set of interview questions for the Open Software Assurance Maturity Model, or Open SAM. Responses to these questions allow us to grade the level of maturity for different teams as to their security practices. These results are stored over time so that they can be used to develop roadmaps for teams and to track progress. Oh, and new maturity models can be added to the system via an XML-based description language. What we have seen is how Vulnerability Manager allows security teams to import and consolidate application-level vulnerabilities, to automatically generate virtual patches, to monitor attack attempts, to communicate with defect tracking systems, and to evaluate team maturity. Because this was all done in a centralized system, application security managers now have greatly increased visibility into and control of these processes. And they're also collecting data that can be used to support sophisticated conversations with their managers and executives. Please remember, this is a technology preview release, so there's still a lot of work to be done before this is production ready. Thanks for taking the time to run through this demo. If you would like to contact me about Vulnerability Manager, you can email me at dan@denimgroup.com or follow me on Twitter @DanielCornell. More information about Vulnerability Manager can be found at vulnerabilitymanager.denimgroup.com.